everybody, and welcome back to Screen Stars, and welcome to another PlayStation 4 review. Today I am bringing you my review for Ubisoft's The Division 2, Tom Clancy's The Division 2 to be more specific. Now then, I played the first Division 2 a decent degree. I didn't lose myself in the game by any stretch of the imagination, but there are elements of the first Division game that I played and enjoyed. I particularly like the RPG elements and the loot aspect of it, and the environment and the idea. I thought it was pretty good, but it didn't hold me, and I didn't stick with the game for the long periods of time. Played it for a few weeks. I went back to it once or twice. And that was about it really for me for the first Division. So I wasn't overly interested, I'll be honest, in the Division 2, and then the more footage I was seeing of it coming up to its release, it was starting to get me a little bit more excited and interested. And the Division 2 is set in Washington DC this time. It's I think it's about 9 months after the initial outbreak, something like that, and you're one of these agents, and you are sent into Washington DC to do, your agent stuff. Straight off the bat here, I've got to say, guys, the story for this game is pretty bang average. I mean, if at all. I mean, the story in the first one was pretty non-existent. It was just a series of cutscenes designed to get you from A to B, and that's kind of what we're getting in the Division 2 here. You're not getting a strong narrative, unfortunately. Now, I have put in a decent amount of time in the game, enough to give you my feedback and impressions on the game and if it's worth buying. I've not heavily gone into the multiplayer type stuff. I've not heavily gone into Dark Zone type stuff. I'm not really a fan of multiplayers. This is more my perspective from a single player campaign, but from people I know and trust, they're saying that this game is superiorly entertaining if you do play it with multiplayer and with friends. So there's that option there. If you're wondering if to get this game only to play it with your friends, I don't think you'll be disappointed with it. From my perspective as a single player gamer, this is my main focus for this review. Now, I want to get my negatives out of the way first for this, because there are quite a few negatives. The main one is the story, first off the bat, as I've mentioned. I mean, it is really paper thin. It is just a series of cutscenes that lead you from A to B with fairly uninteresting characters that you can't remember the names of for the most part. Again, you're a silent protagonist, which I don't like. You've no personality or anything. So that side of it I think is a bit weak and poor. You could argue this game gets repetitive, and the grind for me, certainly up to level 10, was tiresome and hard and painful at times and a bit boring. And then it's almost like you break through this wall from about level 10 onwards, where you get better loot drops. It seemed it felt to me I was getting better loot drops from that point onwards, and more interesting enemies and things like that. And so depending on how fast you level up will depend possibly on your enjoyment of the early aspects of this game. Early doors, 5-10 hours into this game, I'll be honest, I wasn't overly impressed. For the most part, I found it a bit grindy and a bit repetitive. And a real gripe for me as well. I mean, a lot of people, especially Angry Joe, I remember watching his review for the first Division, and they were taking the mickey basically about all the cosmetics, walking around with the beanies and the jackets and stuff and boots, all these cosmetics you could find out and about. Well, if you didn't like that in the first game, you'd probably be happy in the second one, because they're so scarce now. Pretty much all the cosmetics can be found in the monetization part of it, in the loot box stuff, which I do not partake in at all. So the cosmetics drops in regards to the clothes that you wear, hats, jackets, shirts, all that kind of stuff. I think 15 hours in, I think I'd found 3 items out in the world. So it's really trying to get money out of you in regards of buying the cosmetics and stuff, and I just won't do that. So that was a bit of a letdown to me, because you just felt like you looked the same. You know, you couldn't vary it up, even though the other gear items, your knee pads, your backpack, your gun holster, your gas mask, the loot drops for them are plentiful, which varies the way you look slightly, but for me, I thought the cosmetic drops were so few and far between, it kind of spoiled it a little bit for me in this game. I thought the gunplay in general in this game was superior to the First Division. At times it's really challenging, and it's really rewarding at times as well, because if you think and plan out your attacks beforehand, before you engage in the enemy, and you have a little think about where you think the best position is, sometimes that really pays off, and other times it really doesn't. And what I like about that is the variety of it, because sometimes you can put a plan into action and it works and it feels really cool, and other times you'll put a plan into action and it doesn't work, and then the enemies will try outthink you and outflank you. So you're always on your toes with the combat here. You can't just hunker down in one position and hope for the best and just wait to take your best shots when they stick their heads up and stuff. You can sometimes, but not always, because literally you'll be sat in a position you think you're really comfy, and they'll start coming out of doors behind your position, the enemies. So I think the variety of the enemies is good. The design and the AI of the enemies at times is very good. At times they're a bit dumb, you know. Just charging out in the open to get from that point to that point, and you know, if you've got the right weapon, you'll take them out fairly easily. But I did appreciate the tactical element to a lot of the battles. It worked. I think the loot drops are plentiful, and it's pretty enjoyable. It's in regards to your weapon drops, and your gear drops and things like that. It's really addictive when you get these drops, and you spend hours in your menu analysing what's the best piece of gear to wear, what stats you get from that gear. If you look on there, you get different stats at this time round, and it might not always be advantageous to wear what you think is the most powerful one, because if you combine it with another piece of gear, it will become more powerful than if you combine it with something else. So you spend ages in your menu finding out what the best way is to put your gear together, and it's really, really addictive, is that. Another bit of a complaint is you do sometimes get a bit lost in the menus, because you've got all these exclamation marks about things to do and look at, but when you look into them, they're nothing really. They just get on your nerves because you feel like you're missing out on something. The open world, if you like, gives you loads and loads to do. The map is chock full of side missions, events, I suppose you could call them, where there's assassinations taking place, or public executions, and hostage situations and control points you need to take over, as well as all the side missions that you get given at the settlements, and the main missions as well, and all of them, generally speaking, are varied and interesting, and pretty fun to do. I did enjoy the settlement aspect of this game. Throughout the map there's different settlements, and you get given projects to do, and you have to donate things like steel or water or food. And once these projects get completed, the settlements, you'll see them grow and expand and get better, but also you'll get some good rewards as well for completing these projects at the settlements. So that aspect of it really, really worked for me as well. So there's lots of positives and there are some negatives with this game as well. If if you like looter shooters, as this game is being called, and it really is a looter shooter, then I think you're in for a ball for this, because it's pretty strong in regards to that kind of gameplay. I really like this game for the RPG elements in it, and the addictiveness of that, and trying to get stronger and better, and going back out and learning which weapon is best and which gear piece is best, and what combination of weapons works best. Should you have a sniper rifle and then an assault rifle, or a shotgun and a light machine gun? What's the best combinations? And that part of the game is really fun to me. It's really cool that your base of operations is the White House in Washington DC. I really enjoyed that, and you go out and you unlock new specialists to come back and expand your base of operations, very similar to the first one in that regard. You know, you're getting like specialists to come back and set up at Washington DC to make that more powerful and gives you more things to do. You can craft gear, and you can join clans. There's loads and loads of stuff that you can do with these specialists when you get them back to the base. So ultimately here, there's quite a lot here to enjoy with this game, and ultimately for my enjoyment level, and I'm not sure if this is a game I'm going to be playing for months on end, I seriously doubt it, but it's a game I probably could be going back to more often than I did the First Division, because it's a more polished version of that game. I think they really have put a lot of time and effort into this, Ubisoft, and I think for the most part they've succeeded and they've done a pretty good job. So I think I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. I think if this is your thing, if you enjoyed the First Division, it's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. You need to be getting this game. They have improved in a lot of areas, but they've pulled back in other areas, I think it's fair to say. And if it wasn't, I think, for the microtransactions side of it, I'd probably give it a little bit better rating, because I just think they're being a bit tight in regards to the cosmetic side of this game. So yeah, so that is my review for the Division 2. I hope you found it useful in some way. If you've got some doubts about this game, there's loads of reviews out there. You aren't short of reviews for this game, and there's probably people out there who've played this game far more than me that may be able to give you more in-depth reviews, certainly on the multiplayer side of this game. If you're a fairly casual player, as I am, I would regard myself as a casual gamer these days. There are things in here to enjoy for sure. It's not an overly intense game. It's a nice, easy pick up and play game that you can get lost in if you want to. So I hope you found this review useful, everybody, and thank you very much for watching.